So great to meet both of you.
You as well.
Congratulations on the film. I loved it. And I have to tell you, it's not like any Shiva I've ever been to.
Well,
I mean,
thank you.
well, yeah. I mean, Emma, let's just start with you. And first off, before we even get into that, congratulations on it making it into TIFF, because obviously TIFF is your home. It's kind of where you started. How amazing for you to have it premiere there.
Thank you. It is a huge incredible feeling to be back. I've been in quarantine. I've been here in Toronto this whole time, but to come to TIFF as an idea with this movie with my first film because I was part of Sprockets when I was a kid, and then I
Yeah.
did TIFF Next Wave, which is still running and is an incredible high school committee that does so much for Toronto youth to get involved in film and get involved with TIFF. So thank you
You're
for saying
welcome.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're proud of you. It's amazing. It's so great. And Rachel, I want to ask you, I mean, what was your initial reaction? I know you worked on a short, and that's kind of how it evolved. But to be able to, first of all, flesh out this character, Danielle, who has, she's like, there's so much going on there. What was that like for you? And how much did you relate to this material?
Well, I felt so lucky to one have met Emma. Like it does feel like fate. And I felt really lucky that she believed in me enough and wanted me to play this role that I got to do it in the future as well.
Yeah,
And it was so interesting and exciting to read like different drafts as Emma was writing them in the feature. And like it was so, because it was like I loved the short, and then we would be talking and she would be like, in the future I want this to happen, and I was like, oh my god, it's exciting because it's like all these things that happened to Danielle. And I feel like what I relate to a lot in the character, a couple things. I mean, I totally relate to that feeling of like the judgment from your family, and like when you're in that phase when you're like ending college, or like even I think in college, because like I went to school for acting, and like there's always a question when you're doing that. People are always like, and I mean, not to say like that my family didn't believe in me, but I think it's those questions, you know what I mean?
sure. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's a lot of pressure. And then I also really relate to that journey of like the power in your sexuality, and how it's not necessarily as much power as you always think, and kind of the back and forth there. And when we were first doing the short, Emma and I had like a long conversation about that, and I was like, oh, I really relate to this and get this.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. So, Emma, how did this even start? Like, where did this come from? Because you would think, although the movie has a lot of funny moments, man, I was laughing at places where I was like, should I be laughing? Like, but Shiva is not the place where you think of your, a major comedy, right? So, why there? And to kind of set this,
Well, I mean, well, I'm glad you laughed. That makes me happy to hear. For me, and it's funny, like you saying, like this is not a Shiva you've ever been to, and not this much stuff has never gone down to the Shiva I've went to, but
For
I
sure.
will say that I wanted to make it take place at a Shiva because for me, in my like reform community, which is very specific, and I don't think definitely doesn't speak for every kind of Jewish community.
Yeah, yeah.
I find that I've always found it hilarious that despite the fact that we're mourning, which is dark and sad, the conversation topics stay the same for the most part. And it's a lot of bragging and boundary crossing
For
and
sure.
being nosy and, putting pressure on you and asking about your love life and your weight and all of those things. So I always just thought they were funny and inherently like just a contrasting setting, like a setting that had all this contrast and contradictions in it to begin with. And then the idea itself came from just wanting to put a young woman in a setting that would allow her to confront all of her like internal insecurities and then her like external family and communal insecurities. And I thought having a sugar daddy there would allow sort of power dynamics regarding her sexuality come through. And then it also would allow her to kind of be and not confront, but have to face like different versions of herself, like who she is to her family is like a nice Jewish girl, but then who she is to her sugar daddy is like a supposed like independent, sexy young woman.
Right.
So I just thought it would be a great clashing of identities and worlds. And that's how the idea formed.
Yeah. Rachel, I'm sure you had a great script to work off of, but how collaborative was it? Because you're a funny lady and you have ideas and I'm sure you contributed to it. So how did that work?
Well, I mean, one, the script is so good. Like Emma's such a talented writer, and like I felt like there was just great dialogue there. And so I had like that to start on, which was amazing. And then sometimes we would do like improv and stuff like that too. And so that was fun. And some of the other casts would improv too. So it was just cool because and also like Emma would talk to me like about scenes and stuff. So it felt like we were on the same page about like crafting her, like at the beginning of the scene, like how anxious is she? Does she have power? Does Max have power? Who has the power here?
Yeah.
So that felt really collaborative.
Yeah.
In a great
Great.
way.
Yeah. And Emma, like this cast, that's pretty extraordinary. I want to know how you got, people like Polly Draper, Fred Melamed, Diana Agron. I mean, on and on. There's so many other familiar faces in this. How did that all come together? That's amazing.
I still don't know. But to be perfectly honest, but I think things that helped were first and foremost our incredible casting director, Kate Geller, who took on this movie, and we had very little resources and a small budget, and she really just fought for us to get the actors that we wanted, and had such a smart eye of working within our budget and trying to narrow in on Jewish, New York, like theater actors or, folks that she thought would have a deep connection to the material and also be like in New York, so we wouldn't have to fly them out and whatnot.
Right.
But I think the short film also really helped in attracting these actors because, I think on top of everyone pretty much having a connection to the world and the community, either they're Jewish or like Polly, they're married to a Jew, or, it's a part of their lives somehow, this kind of community. If on top of that, they got to see the short, and I think that it helped them envision what I was going for and have a little more trust in a first-time filmmaker, which would otherwise kind of be a little bit of a risk to kind of put your name and your reputation on something that someone hasn't had a chance to sort of prove themselves for.
Right.
So I think Kate and the connection in the material, and I think the short helped in getting this cast. But I'm still like pinching myself, like I can't believe that we worked with Cy Abelman. With Fred Melamed, but
I mean he's
Polly
for sure.
Diana. But he's everybody was so fantastic, and I feel quite lucky that we just offer it to people too. I think that's something people don't really talk about much, but when you're doing something for such a small budget, there's like no room for auditioning, and like why would you when you know that there's actors that are so good for it. It
says a lot about you. It has to. I mean, come on, really. Like if they're going to come, and Rachel, to have these two play your parents, like what do you learn from actors like that, especially Fred? I mean, come on.
I know. Well, I was like intimidated because I was like, literally everyone but me is like a legendary act. Like they're so, I mean, Fred and Polly are so funny, and Emma was just talking about this. They went to school together, and so they knew each other, and they had like that shared chemistry. And it was like it was so, I literally had to be like, stop laughing at how funny they are and have your anxiety attack that you're having in the scene, because it's like, because they're so good. And everyone in the cast was just like lovely and kind, and like we were all in this house together shooting.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was just so much like hanging out here. And there's different generations too. Like, and so hearing different people's like stories. I'm trying to remember, there was like some story about doing like summer stock that was really good. Like there just was
Yeah.
a lot there. So it was really fun.
Absolutely. And, you know, at the end of it, it's very universal. I mean, you do not have to be Jewish to enjoy this movie, honestly. You know, like as Jews, we get a little bit more from it because we get the little nuances, you know, like the food at a Shiva, like you shouldn't go in, should you go, should you take it? It's no, it's for the people who are mourning. And there's all those little things that go on that we get. But at the end of the day, I think everybody can relate to the struggles and the pressures that a young girl or guy could have been, you know, a guy playing this as well. It doesn't, you know, I find that really, really interesting. How do you feel about that, Emma?
Thank you. I mean, I hope so too. I think that I was surprised with the short film that people from different backgrounds related to it, and I think folks who came from culturally specific backgrounds in general related to it a little bit more. So, like you're saying, you know, the themes are a little bit universal, but then on top of that, I think Jews relate to it maybe the most, but then folks like Rachel's Italian and comes from this huge family. But you know, like I remember our sound mixer who was Indian was like, this is like when I go to a wedding, or
Yeah.
you know, like so I was really excited to hear that it reached beyond Jewish audiences for the short. And then I just sort of like had faith that it would do that for the feature, and hope that these themes about pressure would kind of go beyond this community. And that's what I kept on having as my guiding light of the movie. Is like, I just wanted to be about the various pressures put on young women. And my goal is to have young women like relate to it and see themselves in it, and feel heard, because I feel like you know, even though it's a comedy, I just wanted to make something that represented all the anxieties I was having at the time, which made me have a panic attack.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that was part of my goal. So I'm glad that, you know, you're pointing that out.
What did your parents think of it?
My parents?
Yeah.
I mean, above and beyond, they're just so proud of me.
Of course.
Yeah.
They're Jewish parents. I mean, come on,
Yeah,
seriously. Yeah.
exactly. But I mean, you know, they're biased, so I can't really like. They loved it. They love everything about it, and every time we see it, they have something new to say, which is really encouraging. I mean, like the first time they watched it, I think they loved it, but there was that element of like seeing themselves a little bit in it. But I always have to just remind them that it's not, if they're also in that Jewish sort of narcissist way, I just think it's like direct portrayals of them. And I'm like, it's not about you. It's a sort of version of you to kind of further the plot. But you know, they're really above everything. They're proud. They saw themselves in it and were like, oh my God. But then I think they eased up and just enjoyed it and were really proud of me.
Good stuff. Good stuff, as they should be. So Rachel, there's going to be no question. I think a lot of people are going to see this and they're going to go, "Oh, we're going to give that young lady a lot more roles." What's coming up next? Like, have they started knocking at the door yet?
Well, thank you. I'm currently in LA right now shooting a comedy for ABC called Call Your Mother.
Okay.
And it's been so great. It's like, it's so interesting shooting in COVID, but it's so safe. Like there's so many, they're very, very safe, which feels great.
Good.
And then, yeah, I want to keep like writing and creating stuff with Emma. And like, I mean, this role specifically, like, I'm so lucky to have like the first like big role in a feature be like a female character was like just such an in-depth character. And so obviously I really hope to play more roles like that.
Well, we hope so too. You guys have just given us such a great film. I can't wait for more people to see it. And is there like a release or anything yet? Like, have you heard about when it's going to go wider, and just so that I can keep on the radar of that too?
Totally. We do have a distributor now, which, you know, is a release, and yes. So I'm very excited to know that it will reach people widely, you know, if they want it to reach them, it'll be there for people to watch soon, definitely next year. But
Good.
we're not sure exactly the date next year yet, but we're figuring it out, and we're very excited to, you know, I'm so glad we get to keep playing like festivals, especially like queer
Yeah, it
film
helps.
festivals like Inside Out and Jewish film festivals. And it's been so nice to kind of continue this run of sharing it with all these virtual communities that are still hungry for stories. But
Absolutely.
I am excited that it will reach people just sort of everywhere next year sometime.
Well, good stuff. Well, I'm going to share it with all my family and friends for sure, you know, and I've already told everybody about it, that they have to see it. So I just want to thank you both for your time. I really do appreciate it. And best of luck with everything. And then hopefully when we can all meet up in person, we'll have a coffee together at a robot or something. Okay.
That would be lovely.
Okay. Thanks,
awesome.
ladies. Take care
Okay.
and stay safe and healthy. Okay.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.